Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Talking Point. My name is Fahraaz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. It has been a fiery 24 hours on the Indian subcontinent. Of course, a few weeks ago, gunmen had committed a terrorist attack in Kashmir, which has now seen a new flare-up between Pakistan and India. This, of course, is a conflict that dates back to 1947, and a conflict which has seen its primary source, or the center of its conflict, and that is the disputed territory of Jammu and Kashmir. We saw in the last 24 hours attacks from the Indian army, and of course we wait to see now what will happen with regards to a potential flashback or fight back from Pakistan. So let me welcome my two guests today to not just talk about Kashmir, but to talk about what is currently happening and how we have been led up to this conflict between these two nuclear rivals. Joining me both from Islamabad, I'd like to welcome Professor Junaid Ahmed, who is the director of the Center for the Study of Islam and Decolonisation in Islamabad. And also I'd like to welcome Farzana Yacoob, who is a former Minister of Social Welfare and Women Development in Jammu Kashmir. I'm going to start off with you, Farzana. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for joining us. I guess when we look at history, this is just another script in history. But what we're seeing right now is really something which is not just of concern, but is one where we are asking the question, to which level of an impact is this conflict going to take the next step?
Okay, if we want to assess the level, we need to first comprehend the historical relevance of this conflict. So Kashmir, the state of Jammu and Kashmir is a recognized conflict area. 1947 is the year when the British colonizers had to leave. The choice that they gave to the people of South Asia, of the subcontinent, was that there can only be two countries, one for the Hindus and one for Muslims. The choice for Muslims was that you can go to Pakistan, and the choice for Hindus was that you can go to India, or what is called the Hindustan. So India as such has never been a one geographical territory that has been ruled just by one Hindu ruler. It has always been these small princely states, the small fiefdoms, if we could call them. But the only time that it was unitedly ruled or controlled was either by the Mughals,
Yes.
Or by the English colonizer. So there's this long history, and why we need to remember this history and repeat it again and again is because India wants to whitewash all that history. And what it has been portraying is that subcontinent, even 3,000 years ago, was one country only.
Yes.
It never was one country. It was always these separate kingdoms, and very warring kingdoms, by the way. And that is why you will see that the different states, Kashmir is not the only conflict that you have in India. There are multiple freedom movements going on parallel. But sadly, the kind of tactics that India uses in Kashmir tends to highlight Kashmir more than the other places which are suffering equally, the minorities that are suffering over there. So some historical context.
And I wanna,
Kashmir,
yeah. I have to get to Professor Junaid. Apologies for that, Farzana. And this is the important part to it, Professor Junaid. And I'd like to say assalamu alaikum to you, Jazakallah, for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam.
It's something important that Farzana has pointed out. While we are now seeing what has happened in the 24 hours, the Muslim minorities in India continue to be purged by the BJP. This has now been happening for the last 2 to 3 years, if not longer. And this is just some sort of a coincidental event that is happening now, leading up to what we are seeing with this exchange of blows between India and Pakistan and the suppression of people within Kashmir.
Right. Well, I think it is related in the sense that this is the larger platform of the BJP in India, the Hindutva right-wing movement, and that is outright explicit Islamophobia, right? And so that Islamophobia has meant incredible levels of harassment and violence within India itself against Muslims, but it also then extends to a place like Kashmir. Kashmir, for the Indian ruling elite, then become like many of the other leaders after the war on terror. It is the Muslim problem, whether it's in Palestine and Chechnya, Xinjiang, whatever. It becomes a Muslim problem, which then enables the Indian ruling elite to quite freely oppress and kill, murder, demolish homes as they're doing now in Kashmir. So I think that we have to look at it as part of this bigger issue of the current, the current BJP regime over the past, more than one decade, but perhaps even before that as well. And I don't think that other political parties, especially I'm talking about the Congress Party, should get off the hook either. So, that's what the issue is right now.
Farzana, I, of course, we're going to mention the importance of Kashmir in this, and we're gonna delve deeply into it in the next segment. But just how much of Kashmir is really playing a part in this conflict right now? I mean, when you see the pictures, when you saw what happened a few years ago, the Indian army literally going in there, and anyone they felt was some sort of a threat to what had happened a few weeks ago in that attack, they just went in there willingly, did what they did, and there wasn't real accountability for that.
So whatever India does in Kashmir is covered under some laws which are called black laws, PSA, and which means that whatever Indian army does in Kashmir, there is no accountability because it cannot be questioned. So Indian authority actions in the Indian occupied Kashmir cannot be questioned, and that is why there is no accountability. The grave situation is that one, the atrocities that are being carried out by the state of India in Kashmir is very much owned by the government. This is just like an equivalent of what Israel does in Palestine. So the government is terrorizing people. The actual terrorist is the Indian government. And what they're doing is that without any rhyme or reason, they will apprehend Kashmiris. There is no freedom of movement. There is no freedom of expression. There is no freedom of life. There is no freedom of economy to be able to earn, to be able to live. So all these multiple layers of basic human rights, which everyone would most probably assume were to be taken for granted, or that automatically to be provided to people, Kashmiris don't have access to that. For Kashmiris, it is generally considered a luxury to have any kind of freedom, particularly when it comes to freedom of expression, because the stronghold that India has over this region is so complete and so corporeal. It is at such a level that even if you were to speak something against them, for families who talk to each other on the phone, if they're talking something, even be it little bit against the government, they will be sure that the police state will come down and catch them, get hold of them, and then throw them into jails. The other side of this is that once these people, our Kashmiris, are taken into jails, we cannot find them. They are not only put into jails within the Indian occupied Kashmir, but generally they're taken away from Indian occupied Kashmir and then thrown away somewhere in the larger India. Most of our political prisoners in Kashmiris, they are in Tihar jail of New Delhi. They are not anywhere in Indian occupied Kashmir. So coming down to what has happened now in Pahalgam, one, Kashmiris have always been great hosts. We are known for our hospitality. Kashmiris don't attack guests. So it is for sure a false flag. This is not a false flag for the first time. You can remember in 19 there was Pulwama. So whenever India goes into election and India feels that Modi's popularity is going down, a false flag occurs. This is the third time that BJP is in government. Remember that this is the same prime minister who was named as Butcher of Gujarat. This is the same prime minister who could not get entrance into the United States of America because of what he had done in the Gujarat riots leading up to the Babri Mosque events. So this person now is Namo, the great Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, and he completely believes in Akhand Bharat. You would be amazed to know that the new building of the Indian Parliament, which was built and completed in 2023, it has a map of India. Now, that India is not the current India, but what is the Indians wanted. It is the Akhand Bharat, the greater India. And that is the audacity that these Indians have, that they have put up that map, which includes Pakistan as part of India, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan. All of that is Akhand Bharat. So here is the audacity that you see. Now, when a country has reached this level of, chest thumping that I'm the best, we're the only country for Hindus, we're the one and only.
Farzana, Farzana, I have to stop.
Beliefs are.
Farzana, I have to stop you there because we have to go for a break, unfortunately. But after the break, we will continue this conversation on what is currently happening between India and Pakistan. We're going to be focusing on Kashmir after this break. Welcome back to Talking Point. I'm still in conversation with my guests from Islamabad in Pakistan, Professor Junaid Ahmed and Farzana Yacoob. Professor Junaid, I want to come to you. There's so many interesting aspects that Farzana has mentioned with regards to the denial of rights for the citizens of Kashmir. And I can't stop thinking and I can't stop comparing it to apartheid South Africa and, of course, what is currently happening in Palestine, where apartheid laws are being forced upon the people there. And then you look at a Prime Minister in Narendra Modi who is very close friends with, you know who? The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. This is so coincidental, isn't it, Professor?
Coincidental or quite natural. In fact, the two individuals and the bloodlust that they share in terms of targeting innocent civilians, especially if they're Muslims, is very similar. And, as Farzana was speaking about these things, and the last point she made about the types of maps that Modi is now showing of this greater India, Israel and Netanyahu does the same thing. I mean, there's no Palestine. Forget about Palestine. Sometimes there's no Lebanon on there. There's no Syria on there. All of it is greater Israel. So one can easily pick up that one party is learning from the other. India may be a bit late at this, but in terms of methods of collective punishment, of raiding of homes, demolition, and the one thing that India is now intensifying very much is the classic model of settler colonialism. That is to say, this is the demographic, engineering, so that, we'll have more, say, Hindu pundits come and settle there, and the demographics will change. I mean, this is how all settler colonial states have operated. In many cases, they've wiped out the population. That's like the American model. In other cases, in South Africa, the indigenous population was able to revolt. In Palestine, we see what's going on. It's either genocide or ethnic cleansing that's being attempted. So, I raise this not to say that Kashmir is exactly the same as what's going on either in Palestine or elsewhere. But it is important. We were very excited in the Palestine Solidarity Movement when a mainstream human rights group like Amnesty International all of a sudden used the term apartheid for Israel. We never expected that because it's so mainstream and has a lot of Zionist donors and so on. But it was also very interesting, the report on India, in which they said that conditions are being created that could potentially lead to genocide. I was shocked. I was that they would use that type of language. So I mean, everything that Farzana is speaking about is true. It is always for the. I mean, since partition 47 and before, that type of forceful occupation of Kashmir has happened, and I think that's the point that we need to emphasize. We're not just talking about it's a disputed territory. Okay, it's a disputed territory, but you have and Farzana will know better. 750,000, close to 1 million regular security forces, paramilitary forces, and so on. That's a military occupation, right? And there are laws. There's international laws about that about military occupations, especially since the Indian government will not recognize the resolution itself endorsed that required a plebiscite or a referendum. So I think that what's going on now, and particularly in 2019, when the Indians revoked the semi-autonomous status, is that the opposite is happening. Whereas we have expected in the 20th and 21st century for societies to decolonize, in this instance, it is being colonized and recolonized. That's it's being brought a part of an Indian state which it doesn't want to be a part of.
Farzana, and of course, Professor Junaid Ahmed is quite an expert when it comes to understanding decolonization. What we are seeing now in Kashmir, and I want to bring up the word genocide because I know sometimes the word gets thrown out loosely. When you see how India operates within Kashmir, when you see the laws that have been enforced onto the people of Kashmir, when you see what has happened in the last weeks with Indian security forces, with the Indian army going into the homes, doing what they're doing it without a sense of accountability, can we border on the potential of what is happening right now in Kashmir as an act of genocide or more likely crimes against humanity?
What you mentioned, it is all of that. I mean, Kashmiri history, if one goes down the history lane, hundreds and thousands of Kashmiris were killed by the Indian forces post 1947. And even in 1947, there's this organization by the name of Genocide Watch, if I'm not wrong,
Sure.
and they have clearly said that, what is occurring in Indian occupied Kashmir is fulfilling all the requirements of a genocide taking place. Now, we are not saying this very lightly. India is working very hard in killing Kashmiris, decreasing the Muslim population. Now, this state in 1947 was a Muslim majority state. There might be stories of that there were more Muslims in Valley and less Muslims in Jammu, but overall, be it Jammu, be it Valley, Leh, Gilgit-Baltistan, it was predominantly Muslim majority state. And look at it now. Look at the numbers. You will see that the percentage of population of Muslims has decreased significantly. But we're still a majority, but not as much a bigger majority as we were in 1947. So our numbers have gone down drastically. And India is not just satisfied with killing us and then, removing Kashmiris from our own land, but at the same time, post-2019, what they have been doing is that they have been literally plucking up human beings and then putting them literally like plants into the territory of Indian occupied Kashmir. Now, the revocation of Article 370 and 35A has facilitated this, that now you can get domicile. Although these articles were heavily diluted, they did not provide any kind of semblance or protection to Kashmir, except that Indian occupied Kashmir was recognized as a semi-independent state. There was this recognition of an identity of Kashmiris. And by removing these two articles, what they've done is that they've facilitated a process which was already taking place. It isn't that it started in 2019. It has been going on for a very long time. Removal removal of the Muslim identity of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The identity of Muslims, our culture, our food, the way we have our festivals. We have our central Jamia Mosque, where almost every Friday, we're not allowed to pray in our own Jamia Mosque. So India does all kind of human rights abuses. International watchdogs always report about these abuses, but United Nations and NATO in particular has never wanted to do anything to bring even the slightest bit of relief for Kashmiris. Now, with all of this going on in 2019, as I mentioned before, there was in February of 2019, elections were starting. It was the election year. This is the third term that BJP is in government in India. First, 2014. In 2019, the election manifesto mentioned that it will remove, that BJP, if it comes into power, it will revoke Article 370 and 35A, because it was always a proponent of removal of such recognition of protection of identity. And so they did what they said, but they had
left the chat, he came back.
Okay. Unfortunately, we have to stop you there, Farzana. We're going to be, after the break, continuing this conversation with regards to nuclear. India, Pakistan, both have nuclear warheads. What then happens going forward? Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Talking Point. Well, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has said that we will respond when the time is right. Now, the big question is, when you have Pakistan with nuclear warheads and you have India with nuclear warheads, when you have Narendra Modi, whose modus operandi right now seems to be on the path of complete chaos, this is not a good sign. Professor Ahmed, I want to come to you. When we speak of the right of self-defense, Pakistan clearly has that, don't they? And given the rhetoric of Narendra Modi right now, it just seems every right for Pakistan's self-defense is justified given what has happened in this last 24 hours.
Of course, it has the right to self-defense, unlike the Israelis that have no right to self-defense against an occupied people, in which the only obligation they have is to withdraw from the occupation. I say that because we are always hearing this, Israel's right to self-defense. But of course, the sovereign nation state like Pakistan has the right to self-defense against any type of incursions into its territory. I mean, I think the problem between Pakistan and India is that over the years, decades, they have gotten so used to pretty much managing this, what they call low-intensity conflict, whether it be in Kashmir. And now it's very important to point out, I mean, because it's quite open and explicit that the Indians will support some types of militants within Pakistan itself, especially in the province of Balochistan. I mean, I think many of those Baloch leaders, as well as the Indian government itself, are not even hiding the fact anymore. So, on the one hand, this is taking place. But your question about nuclear weapons, I remember throughout the whole War on Terror years, so-called War on Terror years, you'd have all these American think tanks sitting in DC saying, "Whoa, this is crazy, Pakistan, all this terrorism is happening. What if those nukes land in the hands of these extremists, etc.?" My response would be simple. I would say that, well, you're doing everything possible that may actually happen. It's a very remote possibility, but your policies are actually the ones that actually may make it happen. In India and Pakistan, again, this is not Israel and Palestine. So Pakistan has the nuclear weapons. It's supposed to be as a method of deterrence against, obviously, a country much larger, with a much larger conventional military. But again, these are things that one should never take risks with. And I feel like, and I've written about this as well, yes, this is about Kashmiris and their rights and people, but Pakistan and India make it about this big kind of their own egos in the region, and those egos can then lead to anywhere. I mean, I don't have much confidence in the generals in Islamabad. I'll be very honest about that. In terms of whatever sensible thinking on these things, probably much more sensible than obviously the Modi regime. But I do think that when we're talking about decolonizing Kashmir, in some ways, a country like Pakistan needs to also be decolonized. I think it's betrayed or incomplete decolonization. And I think that when Pakistan also gets to that point, I think more and more Kashmiris, like under Khan, and we can disagree about this, like under Imran Khan, will be much more, Pakistan will be much more appealing to them.
And that's where I want to come to, and this is where I want to bring in Farzana, right? You've got Narendra Modi, and there's a volatility right over there. Nobody really knows what he's... Actually, some people would know what he's going to do, but there's a sense of volatility when it comes to him, given who he represents as the BJP, given this Hindutva supremacy that he's instilled in India, right? Then, of course, you got the leadership in Pakistan. When I speak to many within the Pakistani diaspora in South Africa, they have no real confidence in the current leadership. They would be hoping that Imran Khan can come back into power to supposedly bring a sense of normality within this nation. What is Farzana Yacoob's take on this? Is the leadership with both Pakistan and India within a sensible manner to handle this current conflict right now?
Okay, so to respond to that, I would want us to go back to 2019. So when Pulwama attack took place and 40 CRPF personnel were killed by a suicide bomber within Indian-occupied Kashmir at the place of Pulwama, India threatened to, get revenge, and it attacked in Balakot. Pakistan responded, and they at that time as well, they put down 2 planes, and they also apprehended a pilot. And then that pilot was sent back in 24 hours. And Narendra Modi said, he went on this whole election game that he threatened Pakistan that if you do not return my pilot, I will attack. Now, at that time, Pakistan did not attack as it has attacked today. In 2019, Pakistan did not respond as strongly as it should have. As a Kashmiri, I will tell you that because of that complacency in 2019, look at what India has become today. It feels so brave. It has the courage and the guts to not only threaten Pakistan, but attack at multiple places. The attacks that took place last night were very well coordinated, very well designed. But, they're saying that they attacked terrorist hideouts. The buildings that they attacked in Bahawalpur were in the use of government. Apparently, they did not know that. But you see, if India starts doing that, and Pakistan does not respond strongly, then anytime they will attack Pakistan, just like Israel, whenever it feels like, oh, I'm not feeling good today, what am I going to do? I'm going to attack Gaza or the West Bank. Literally, that's how Israel works. And if India is not stopped, that is what it will do to Pakistan. That is what it has always envisioned to do to Pakistan. So there is a clear difference of the government and of the actions that took place in 2019 and that are taking place in 2025. I, as a Kashmiri, feel better today. I will be very honest, because we felt horrible. On the 5th August of 2019, we had this complete faith that Pakistan would, attack, would do some kind of intervention. But all that we did was, stand outside for 30 minutes. All we did was tell in the parliament, oh, we can't have war. We're not going to war. India always said, you don't need to go to war, but at least, the threat has to be responded with an equal threat. And Amit Shah, please do remember that after 2019, after trying to convert Indian occupied Kashmir into two union territories and then bringing in multiple legal changes, which we call constitutional terrorism, legislative terrorism that is going on in Indian occupied Kashmir. What have they done? Here we are today, and we have an emboldened India. We have Narendra Modi, as crazy as he is. We've had elections in Indian occupied Kashmir where Kashmiris came out in droves. Over 50% people, Kashmiris voted, but they did not vote for India. That vote does not translate into Kashmiris wanting to be with India. That vote translates into what was said to them during the election campaign by all the political parties, and which is that we will talk to India to return our statehood. And that is what Kashmiris endorsed by voting in these elections. So there's a huge difference. Political alignment, people like Imran Khan, they're most welcome to love him and adore him. But as a Kashmiri, I have to be very careful that I am a politician as well, and I have to look at facts. What was done at that time and what is being done today. Today, Pakistan has a very clear stance. The whole government has a very clear stance. The threats have been responded with clear threats. Pakistan last night only deterred and defended. It has not, answered or returned the attacks. So Pakistan still has that right, and Pakistan most probably will exercise that right. The discussion that whether it is right or wrong, or whether the nuclear armament can be used, it all depends on what India does. India is responsible for this escalation. India is also very responsible for this whole situation escalating into a bigger war. And also,
Farzana, I have to stop because what you are leading to now is the question, and I've just got 1 minute for you, Professor Ahmed. What sort of response would you foresee Pakistan delivering in the next few days? Your minute starts now.
Well, I mean, I guess I've never called myself this, but I will take a pacifist approach. And I do believe that Khan's approach has always been pacifist. And I know that Farzana makes a great point that if the Pakistani state is more assertive in combating Indian crimes in Kashmir and against all of its own minorities, that would be a positive thing. I just think, and speaking to Indian Muslims throughout the world, actually, I just think that many of them have been severely disappointed, not just because of Khan's inaction in 2019, but because of the internal political chaos within Pakistan itself. The question is, do we want to join? We did want to join, but look what's going on in Pakistan. So I agree with Farzana. Pakistan, from the beginning, I always said, was a check on Islamophobia within India. I think India would be far more Islamophobic if a Pakistan did not exist right next to it. But right now, over the past few years, Pakistan has been behaving just like a subservient slave to foreign powers. So I'm a bit more skeptical than Farzana that this is some type of a principled response from Pakistan. I think it's just being cornered, and it has to and it's a great way to again distract the population of the country.
Professor Ahmed, I have to stop you there. After the break, we wrap up this conversation. What is the role of the global players in this current conflict between India and Pakistan, and of course the disputed territory of Kashmir? Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Talking Point. Farzana, I want to come to you. Okay, so our South African government, they've been mentioning that they are monitoring the situation. Some may feel because of its alliance with India through its BRICS partnership, there's a bit of a cautious approach there. The United States of America, though, has condemned the attacks that had happened this morning, though one may feel that it's a bit of a sort of false narrative coming from US President Donald Trump, given his closeness with Narendra Modi. The United States of America, Farzana, are they honest in anything that they're going to do to try and help not just Kashmir, but this escalation between India and Pakistan?
I don't know, to define American honesty is really difficult, and I wouldn't want to go there. They've clearly shown that for them, they stand for might is right, and whatever it is, like they believe in, it has to be done that way. So I don't know about their honesty, but I do see that they will be standing by India, but also providing some kind of space for Pakistan. And United States is really good at double playing. They play the good cop, bad cop to satisfy both the proponents within the conflict. So America could play a positive role. I hope it would. But having looked at the history that America has both with India and Pakistan, I'm not really sure that it could have as fruitful an impact as we would desire it.
Professor Ahmed, the
Yeah, can
United
I just
States.
add
Yeah,
that,
sure, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, one of the problems in this entire scenario, when the Indian government has just ignored the international law, UN obligation of a plebiscite or referendum, other countries have offered to attempt to arbitrate, mediate between the two, but India has always refused. So this is only a bilateral issue between us. And why does it say that? Because it knows that it's not going to budge. It's not going to do anything, and no other country should force it to do so. In terms of the United States, I actually maybe I didn't catch it. I know that Trump said it's a shame what's happened. I didn't know he condemned the Indian attack in
well, the statement kind of leans towards that, but again, I mean, that's the question I was asking of Farzana. Yeah,
it's a shame what's going on there. It's a shame how many people are starving and dying in Gaza, as if these are natural disasters that are happening and not, terrorist military machines that are doing it.
Farzana, the role of the entire globe, because this is now a BRICS nation. There's China, who's a nuclear power. There's Russia, that's a nuclear power. Modi's trying to wield his influence to try and make sure that he has this communication with Vladimir Putin. A few years ago, China and India were not seeing eye to eye on disputes that were happening in that part of the border. Given the sort of character Narendra Modi is, given the sort of volatility that he comes with, he himself needs to play his cards right here, doesn't he? Because it only takes one mistake for him to really tick off another global power. Does he have that within him? Or is he just going to do what he wants to do and not really care about the ramifications from a global south or even a west perspective?
Well, Modi is very smart. He does care about the global players, and he plays them really well. Hats off to the global players who get played by Narendra Modi. China is, as always, it is very careful in its responses, but it has stood by Pakistan. Once again, I will go back to 5th August 2019. The conversation that was curated in the Security Council, it was initiated by China. So China does play its role as the firefighter or putting down the fight. But in the current scenario, what we've seen is that even China is really looking at this situation, how this situation is escalating. Please do remember that India has attacked Neelam Jhelum Dam. Yes. And India has been saying that it wants to end the Indus Water Treaty. These rivers are starting from China. India itself is also a lower riparian, and then Pakistan is the third lower riparian, the last lower riparian. And when we look at how it has attacked water-related installations, so clearly India wants war. India wants Pakistan to retaliate in just the way that they have, and if Pakistan does, then this will escalate into a bigger war. We've been using Chinese ammunition and their planes. So we have that side to us. Putin is also said to be looking at this situation. No one has clearly sided with anyone. Everyone has shown its concern that India has attacked. But as Junaid said, no one has really condemned it. The concern has been shown, but the condemnation is not really there. And most of the media is Western media. It's not like Hilaal. They're not going to show the real side. They're going to show their side.
Okay, Professor Ahmed, Farzana, I've got 2 minutes for you guys to deliver your closing arguments. Where to now from here, Professor Ahmed?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I went into the geopolitics of this, but it's very important. So I'll just make my final remarks about that. And especially Farzana obviously mentioned China. The issue with Pakistan right now is that while in the past it had no problem having a relationship with China, a very close relationship, and having some type of a relationship with the United States. I mean, sometimes they're best friends, sometimes they're enemies, and it's been able to somewhat balance that in the past. The problem now is that it's not something that maybe a decade or two ago when the Americans didn't see China as this great competitor threat, but now it is very clear. The new Cold War is the United States versus China. In fact, Trump would like to get Putin on board his side against China. And so Pakistan has the huge flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative called CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that goes to the port of Gwadar, which is a very lucrative, very useful port for the Chinese because if the United States blocks the Strait of Malacca, that's the only warm water port that they have. So not only the Pakistanis are offering that not just as a port, but now even as a naval base, because they are just the country is so impoverished. Of course, the rich are so rich. So the geopolitics right now is that I really do think that the United States was aware of what India did now. It had effectively authorized it. The issue is putting pressure on Pakistan to distance itself from China and come to the orbit, the circle of trust of the Americans, the Indians, the Israelis, and all the good guys in the world.
Yeah, good guys. I can hear the sarcasm in that, Professor Ahmed. Farzana, your closing remarks with regards to this. Where to now?
So we were still in very difficult times. Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir post the Pahalgam event have thousands of Kashmiris have been apprehended, arrested, and then taken away. Over 50 houses have been decimated. Cordon off and search operations are going on. It is the most heavily militarized zone in the world. Indian occupied Kashmir is the most heavily militarized zone in the world. So whatever happens is a war. It is a war crime, and Kashmiris need relief. Anyone, please, anyone who can facilitate that peace, who can get India to stop abusing our Kashmiris, they should play their role. We all need to play our role in protecting our Muslim brothers and sisters, but not just Muslims. All the people who are being put down, who are being treated as animals, be it in Palestine, be it in Indian occupied Kashmir, be it in any other place. We need to get together and we need to start working towards a better world. And only we can make that better world by helping each other.
Farzana, Professor Junaid Ahmed, Jazakallah so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. I wish we had more time. Fortunately, this is all we have. Jazakallah so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
No, absolute pleasure. You're welcome. That's Farzana Yacoob, former Minister of Social Welfare and Women Development in Jammu Kashmir, and Professor Junaid Ahmed, Director of the Center for the Study of Islam and Decolonisation in Islamabad. Of course, we'll be still keeping an eye on what is happening in the subcontinent. From myself, Fahraaz Patel, the rest of the team in Johannesburg, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.